human immune system is, quite clearly, one of the weakest in nature. For tens of thousands of years, our bodies have failed to develop complete protection against two major scourges: diseases and allergies. Yet when you examine creatures in nature, you'll notice that even the simplest organisms rarely face these issues to the same degree. Creatures so frail compared to other species on the planet go from barely kindling a fire in a cave to starting to build colonies in space in such a short time. This intriguing theory is gaining popularity as more Earth-like, habitable planets are discovered. If you're someone who gets drenched in sweat the moment you step into the sun, can't survive cold weather without layering up in a dozen clothes, starts coughing uncontrollably in dry places, or has 1,000 different allergies to flowers, bugs, and everything in between, I'm sure you've experienced your fair share of struggles tied to climate and the environment, just like the examples I mentioned. For example, until I was 18, I couldn't even step outside in the summer without using anti-itch eye drops and ointment. So what's the reason that nearly everyone around the world has been dealing with these kinds of issues for centuries? If we're also part of the group of living creatures on this planet, why don't we have bodies that can handle external factors as well as they do? Putting everything else aside, how is it that humans can be both the most intelligent creatures on this planet and yet one of the most vulnerable in nature? Our lifestyle, our development, and our physical traits almost make it seem like we don't belong to this world, don't they? Believe it or not, some recent studies actually claim that we might not belong to this world. For centuries, humans have been searching for answers about their existence and their place in the universe. While mainstream science today claims that humans, like all other living creatures, are a species that emerged from millions of years of evolution, there are still significant gaps in this theory when it comes to the human species. For example, after Homo erectus, considered our early ancestors, there's a dramatic leap in the transition to Homo sapiens, modern humans, along with an even more striking difference in intelligence. Various researchers have been trying to explain this phenomenon with their own interpretations. Some argue that cooking meat shortened the digestive process, allowing the brain to develop more rapidly. Others claim that occasional leaps in collective consciousness cause the differences between the two species. Theories like these go on and on. It remains an unsolved mystery. However, when we approach the issue through the lens of logic and science, several serious questions arise. When we examine the physical traits of modern humans, some serious design flaws immediately stand out. For example, our spine isn't structured to properly support our body's upright posture. For this reason, one of the biggest problems faced by nearly all of humanity is back and lower back pain, along with related health conditions. Another example is our extreme sensitivity to the planet's climate conditions. Without protective clothing, almost none of us can withstand the heat of the sun or the cold of winter. You don't even need to be born in the African desert or the North Pole for this to be true. Even in our country, located in a temperate climate zone, you wouldn't survive a single night outside in winter without any clothes. Some claims suggest that our bodies were once covered in hair that later shed. But to me, this has never seemed like a convincing explanation, because when we look at other creatures, we don't see this kind of adaptation. Their fur is structured to protect them from both cold and heat. Interestingly enough, while increased fur is more commonly observed in cold climates among animals, the opposite is true for humans. Northern populations have so little body hair that it's almost negligible. The human immune system is, quite clearly, one of the weakest in nature. When we look at our history, it's clear that ever since humans transitioned from a nomadic lifestyle to settled communities and began living closely with animals, we've been plagued by diseases. Countless thousands of illnesses and just as many allergies have followed us ever since. For tens of thousands of years, our bodies have failed to develop complete protection against two major scourges: diseases and allergies. Yet when you examine creatures in nature, you'll notice that even the simplest organisms rarely face these issues to the same degree. In fact, some creatures we consider simple, like certain species of jellyfish, experience neither disease nor aging. Under the right conditions, they are theoretically immortal. Humans, on the other hand, must constantly bolster their immune systems against climate conditions and nature's challenges. Otherwise, they quickly fall ill, potentially facing severe conditions that could even lead to death. The final and perhaps most striking anomaly is our reproductive system. If you look closely, you'll be hard-pressed to find another species in nature that puts mothers through as much strain as humans do before and after childbirth. The spine's flawed structure and the narrow ribcage system manifest themselves profoundly here. This leads to pregnant women experiencing severe back pain, and as childbirth approaches, the baby's pressure on organs causing compression in the tight chest cavity, resulting in breathing difficulties. After birth, something emerges that no other creature on Earth comes close to resembling: the human baby. I'm sure you've all seen footage of animals giving birth in documentaries. Just a few hours after birth, a newborn animal learns to walk, feed, and survive, using many of its instincts almost instantly. Even in species like cats and dogs, where development is relatively slow, the young can perform all essential functions exceptionally well within a month or two at most. Now consider the human baby. The human infant seems to defy natural selection, adaptation, and all the activities of the life cycle, as if staging a rebellion. Even years after birth, it can neither protect itself, feed itself, find its way, speak, nor communicate effectively. The human baby is likely the most helpless and dependent creature in nature, relying heavily on its parents. Beyond the few key examples I mentioned earlier, you can find dozens more fascinating insights if you dig deeper. For example, compared to other creatures, we are physically much weaker. Our night vision is practically non-existent, our hearing is far less acute, and we require constant nourishment just to survive. When you consider all this, some scientists and researchers can't help but ask, how could a creature so frail compared to other species on the planet go from barely kindling a fire in a cave to starting to build colonies in space in such a short time? From this question, we begin to venture into the more mysterious and intriguing aspects of the topic. This intriguing theory is gaining popularity as more Earth-like, habitable planets are discovered. Based on this, scientists studying the structural flaws of the human body propose that humanity might have evolved on a planet with slightly lower gravity than Earth's, a stable rather than variable climate, and fewer or much smaller predators compared to those on Earth. Whatever the reason, they suggest that humans later arrived on our planet and began living here. At first glance, it may sound like science fiction, but when we weigh the strengths and weaknesses of these theories, you'll see they hold nearly the same level of plausibility as the theory of human evolution on Earth. In fact, we've even discovered planets of the kind I mentioned earlier. These planets with stable climates are typically tidally locked. One side of such worlds constantly faces their star, making it hot, while the dark side remains extremely cold. Yet the twilight zone of these planets is almost a perfect habitat. Neither too hot nor too cold, it allows humans to survive in conditions suited to their natural origins. Neither fully lit nor completely dark. In such an environment, the human eye wouldn't need protective sunglasses or rely on artificial light sources at night to see clearly. The consistently mild and fertile climate means that creatures generally don't need to evolve into large predators or massive herbivores. This growth in ferocity is typically an evolutionary trait animals develop to adapt to harsh climates. In an environment without such conditions, humans could have thrived, much like our current physical form, without evolving sharp claws, exceptionally acute vision, or a highly sensitive sense of smell. When you consider all this, the possibility that humans came to Earth from another planet seems to have nearly the same likelihood as the miraculous evolution of our species on this planet, surviving and thriving against all odds compared to other creatures. However, the next theory is currently even more popular and compelling than both the theory of evolution and the extraterrestrial planet hypothesis I mentioned earlier. The ancient aliens theory offers an explanation that seems to answer nearly every lingering question. Introduced to the world through Erich von Däniken's Chariots of the Gods, the concept of extraterrestrial creators is gaining traction today thanks to numerous new archaeological discoveries in the internet. With access to thousands of ancient texts and epics in various languages online, This theory is becoming one of the most popular explanations for human origins. According to the ancient aliens theory, a highly advanced humanoid extraterrestrial race came to our planet roughly 400,000 years ago in search of gold deposits and established a colony here. The theory continues as follows. This highly advanced race, having begun extracting Earth's rich gold deposits, eventually decided to create a subordinate slave race to ease their workload. To achieve this, their scientists, known as Enki, combined their own genetic material with that of a primate species present on Earth at the time, now known as Homo erectus, resulting in a hybrid species, humanity. This narrative has been interpreted in ways that resemble accounts in some modern sacred texts, where God creates humanity in his own image, or by breathing his spirit into them. According to the theory, the first human created is named Adapa in Sumerian mythology. Over time, this name evolved into Adam in the Torah, and later in Hebrew as Edom, or Adam, as it entered sacred texts. According to the theory, the human race, created by the Anunnaki, labored for them and multiplied over tens of thousands of years. However, following climatic catastrophes and devastating wars among the Anunnaki, they abandoned Earth, leaving it to humanity. According to the theory's timeline, civilization restarted with the ancient Sumerians around 4,500 BCE after this devastation. Many experts claim that the sudden emergence of the Sumerian civilization, so advanced for its time, can be explained by this very narrative. The ancient aliens theory is gaining popularity because it aligns with religious narratives and offers a unique explanation for how humanity could have advanced so rapidly in evolutionary terms in such a short time. Many researchers in particular explain humanity's insatiable obsession with gold, the physical ailments we face due to rapid evolution without fully adapting to the planet, and, most crucially, our profound disharmony with other living creatures and the planet's natural cycles through this theory. Because no other naturally evolved species has caused such widespread destruction, of course, all these topics are currently being independently studied and investigated. Whether it's the theory of evolution, ancient aliens, or migration from other planets, each still contains some gaps. Nevertheless, with our growing understanding and new discoveries, questions about why humanity is so ill-suited to this planet and where we came from are gradually finding answers. So what's the most striking mismatch you've noticed in yourself or your surroundings? Do you think humanity is a natural part of the planet's flow, or is there something entirely different behind our creation? Join the discussion in the comments. See you in the next video, and take care.